Hi everyone, it is Nicolette here from Dooney & Daughters. In today's how-to video tutorial, I am going to be going through one of the Artisan Company paint recipes on this table here, and I am going to show you step by step how to do it. So first of all, we're going to start with adding an Efex moulding, a trim around the edge here, so I'll show you how to do that. And then we're using two colours, so two of our beautiful greys. We've got River's Peak and Parisian Grey, and we're going to blend them in together. Once that's done and it's dry, we're going to add two different coloured waxes, so I'll show you how to make a coloured wax. We're going to do Beluga, because I don't have crisp white open at the moment, but it's going to make a beautiful white coloured wax, and then Clubhouse Grey, so that's a darker grey wax. And then to finish, we're going to dry brush a little bit of the Indie Gold metallic alchemy. So I'll show you how to mix the metallic, and then I will show you how to dry brush. So lots of different techniques in this video and lots of different learning points. I'm just going to talk through everything that you need for this project. I will be doing it on one of our side tables here, so I have that ready to go. And then we are using the Efex trims. So I have two of these so I can wrap it right around. And for that, I will also need a pencil for the outline, my Efex or the ADOS F2 contact adhesive for the Efex moulding, and some really sharp scissors so I can trim to get a nice join. Then for painting, I have my two base colours. We've got River's Peak and Parisian Grey, and then I have a round brush and an angled brush here so that you can get into all of the details and the curves. So perfect. We're going to be creating a little bit of texture and movement, so a round brush is ideal. Then for the wax, I have some clear wax. I have my Clubhouse Grey and my Beluga. To make my clear waxes, I will use some baking paper for that. And then I have my wax brush, and I will be using some lint-free white rags as well. And then for the metallics, I have my Illuminator and my Indie Gold concentrate, it's a well-loved one, which I will mix again on some baking paper, and I have my little mini spoons so that I can get the right amount there. To start, I am going to put my Efex moulding on. So this one here is the perfect size for the width of our table. Normally though, if it was larger, you would pop it where you want it and draw an outline with your pencil, and then you know where to put your glue. Efex mouldings are latex based, so they are fully bendable, so it's going to wrap around very nicely. So I'm going to start with putting my glue on, and then I put it around the edge where I want it to go, and also on the back here. Wait about 10 minutes, and then I'll be able to stick it on. Okay, so my glue is now ready. It has been about 10 minutes. In winter here, it does seem to dry a little bit faster, but it is tacky and sticky, but the glue isn't coming away with my finger and stretching when I touch it. So that's kind of the biggest tip. So now we know it is ready to be put on. So as you can see, I am missing just a little tiny bit here, just a little bit too short. So I can patch this with another piece of my trim or another trim, and I'm just working out where I want it. So I want to pop this little flower detail in the middle here. So I will cut up to this line, so just with some really sharp scissors. I'm just going to cut it relatively straight, and then you can trim them. So this is the beauty, you can make, because they're all fully bendable, you can make the Efex mouldings work for you. So I can pop that in there, and then I know I need to cut a little bit more off here, and then it should hopefully just trim that nicely, and then it should fit in. Perfect. So I will just do the same. I will use the Efex glue, put a little bit more on this so it's tacky, and on the back, and then that'll be good to go. I'll then leave it for about 10 minutes to fully harden, and it will be good to be painted. Now that my moulding is completely dry, I can start painting. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do my first coat in Parisian Grey. So this is slightly darker than the River's Peak, and I'm going to do that all over, let it dry, and then I am going to kind of blend and mix and merge the River's Peak and the Parisian Grey on my second coat while they're still wet. So I will show you that in more detail. So my first coat of Parisian Grey is now dry, and I can do the mix between the River's Peak and the Parisian Grey. I'll pull you up nice and close so you can see what I'm doing. But what I've got here is my two colours on a plate, my Parisian Grey, my River's Peak, which is a little bit softer and bluer. I've got my two brushes, and then I also just have a little spray bottle of water just so I can keep everything nice and wet as I'm going. So I'll pull you up nice and close so you can see exactly what I will be doing. But I'm just going to blend the two colours and kind of use the lighter River's Peak to create some highlights, and then the darker Parisian Grey to create some lowlights. Starting with my Parisian Grey, I'm just going to put this around my edges like so. Sorry, this is a little bit wobbly. I'll try and be gentle a bit, so I'm just going to keep putting it around my edges so then I can blend in my softer River's Peak more into the middle. Okay. And a little bit more. Okay, so this is all on there now, and then I'm just going to pick up, same brush, I'm just going to use my River's Peak, and I'm just going to pop that all into the middle like this, and then just slowly brush it down and up. So around this part here, and right around, and yeah, just slowly blending it in, and then just getting a little bit more of my Parisian Grey, and just working the two colours together until they're fully blended in, and you've got this really nice subtle mix of colour which will show up a bit more when it is dry. So the painting is all done now. It's very subtle, but you can see change of colours in the dark and the light. So now it's time to wax it. So we need to wax it to seal it, but we are going to make some coloured waxes so that we can bring out more colour, depth and highlights. We're going to use two different colours. We're going to use Beluga, which is one of our whites. It's our grey base white. We're going to use this to create some highlights. And then we're going to use Clubhouse Grey, which is our deep grey, and it's going to be going to create some wonderful shadows and depth. So I will do a close-up to show you how to make the coloured waxes and then how we put it on. But pretty much I'm going to focus the darker one, the Clubhouse Grey, into all the details and around the edges, and then keep the rest of it quite light with the Beluga. So I have my two paints here. I have a tin of clear wax and I have some baking paper to make this on. So making coloured waxes with the Artisan Company chalk paint is really easy. You just want to put some clear wax onto a flat surface. We really like using baking paper as it is flat and easy to see what you're doing. So I've got some down here. I'm going to make a little bit more of my white, as that's what I want in the majority. Well, I want to keep my table quite light, so I'm mainly going to use the white. And you can see how much wax I have here. I'm just going to eyeball it, but a similar amount of paint or less paint to wax. So we still want to keep it a wax consistency. Okay. And then we just mix it up really well, stirring it so that we don't have any lumps and we don't have any swirls of paint. So as simple as this. And that's now ready to use. So I'm going to use my large brush when brushing this one on. And that's my white. And then same thing, but this time I'm going to use less of my darker one. So I'm just going to make a little bit. So a little bit of my wax, and then again we just eyeball it, but a similar amount of paint to wax, and mix it in really well. And you can see here all well mixed together. And now I have a coloured wax that I can use. And so this one, because I'm just going to do it on small amounts, I'm going to use a little dabbing brush. I'm really happy with how this has come out. I blended a bit using my brushes with the Clubhouse Grey, so the darker grey wax with the Beluga white. So I put the white on first, and then I went around with my smaller brush and did the Clubhouse Grey. And then I actually used my brush with some of the Beluga wax on it to blend them in together. So it's really layered, but you can see that there's all this movement, and it's catching the light in different ways, and we've got shadows and highlights. It's looking really good. We can leave it here definitely, but I am just going to add a little bit of a touch of gold around my Efex moulding that I've glued on, just to kind of make that pop a little bit more. So really simple to do. I have some baking paper again. I have my Illuminator, which is the binder, and then I have my indie gold, which is my metallic pigment. What I'm going to do is just get a little bit onto my baking paper of my Illuminator. I'm not going to use very much because I'm going to be dry brushing this. Shake up my indie gold, and then with my little measuring spoon here, I am just going to pop a bit on top and then give it a good mix. So really similar here to mixing our wax together. We just want to get it all mixed in so there's no pigments floating around. This is a really strong mix, but as I said, it's a really strong mix, but I'm going to be dry brushing it, so it can be a little bit stronger. And I'm going to brush it on, and then I've got a clean bit of my rag, and I'm going to rag it back. Okay, put the lid back on. And then I've just got one of the small artist brushes. Pretty much I'm going to pick it up and then wipe a lot of it back off onto my paper. We always have paper on our tables because we're not so we don't have to be too neat and tidy. And then I'm just going to really lightly brush on where I want it and rag it back. So I'm just going to do that all around. So really lightly brush it on. I don't need much, and then with my rag pull it back, so it's going to give a little bit of metallic but not too in your face. By the way, my wax isn't fully dry, like it's dry to touch, but it hasn't cured. I'm doing this straight away because the wax is still wet. It gives me a little bit more movement and play with pulling the metallics back. I have just changed the direction of where I'm sitting as the sun has come out finally today and the lighting's completely changed. But the table is now finished and it does look great. I'll do some close-ups. But as you can see the gold now around the edge, the movement in the different coloured waxes, which are also highlighted by the different colours underneath. So really beautiful finish. Just a few tips. If I didn't need it today, but when you're blending paints, a little spray bottle of water, especially if you're doing a bigger piece or it's warmer weather than it is today, is really good. It can keep your paint wet and helps it to blend better. With your coloured waxes, as I said, I kind of used my Beluga white wax to blend in with my Clubhouse Grey, the darker grey wax. You can also use some superfine steel wool for that. And then dry brushing the metallic alchemy range is a really great way to create metallic highlights, especially over wax. So not perfect or not the best for a really high wear area, and that when that happens, I would prefer to use a full metallic paint with no wax underneath and then do the wax with some detailing over the top. But for something like this, it's a perfect one. Just create some highlights. We also really recommend washing your brushes with a gentle soap and warm water. So we use olive soap, but any really gentle soap will work, and that'll break down the wax and the metallic. And yes, if you have any questions with this finish, please let us know, because we can go into more detail. As I said, there's also a paint recipe from the Artisan Company up on the website, which just gives you a good overview and a different example on a bigger piece of furniture of what this finish can look like. Thanks for following along, and we'll be making some more videos again soon.